The man who found me shaking in his footwell didn't call the cops. He called his driver. I was crouched behind the passenger seat of a Genesis GV80, mascara streaking down my swollen cheek, blood crusting under my nose, when the door opened and a stranger in a Tom Ford suit froze mid-motion. Our eyes locked. His jaw tightened. He didn't ask my name. He asked, "How long has he been doing this to you?" 3 hours earlier, Evan had shattered a wine bottle against our kitchen wall because I'd smiled at a barista. 20 minutes before that, I'd realized I was going to die in that apartment if I didn't run. So I ran barefoot, phoneless, wearing nothing but leggings and a ripped sweater in 34-degree Chicago wind until I couldn't hear his voice screaming my name anymore. The parking garage was dark, empty, safe. I slipped past the gate when a delivery driver buzzed in, found the only unlocked car, and made myself invisible. I wasn't expecting the owner to return at 1 a.m. I wasn't expecting him to look like money, power, and control everything Evan pretended to be but wasn't. And I definitely wasn't expecting what he said next. "I'm going to ask you one question, and I need you to answer honestly." His voice was calm, surgical. "Do you want to disappear?" I blinked at him through tears, not understanding. "I can take you to a hospital. I can take you to the police. Or..." He crouched down so we were eye level, and I saw something dangerous flicker across his face. "I can take you somewhere he'll never find you, give you a job, and make sure he never puts his hands on anyone again. Your choice." My heart was hammering. Every instinct screamed that this was insane, that I was trading one dangerous man for another. But when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see pity. I didn't see a savior complex. I saw cold calculation and something else, recognition, like he'd seen this before. Like he knew exactly what monsters looked like because he'd made a career out of destroying them. "The job," I whispered. He stood, pulled out his phone, and made a single call. "Bring the car around back, and get Marcus. I need a full workup on an Evan." He glanced at me. "Evan Castellano," I said, voice shaking. His expression shifted, just barely. "Castellano. East Side. Mid-20s. Assaults women." He paused. "Yeah, that one. I want everything." He hung up, extended his hand. "Can you walk?" I nodded, took his hand, and let him pull me out of the footwell. My feet were bleeding. I hadn't noticed. "What's your name?" he asked as we moved toward a private elevator I hadn't seen before. "Jade." "Jade, I'm going to be very clear with you. The next 72 hours are going to be disorienting. But if you trust me, Evan Castellano will never touch you again. And 6 months from now, you're going to be someone he wouldn't recognize even if he saw you." The elevator doors closed, and my old life ended. The first thing Jade saw was a gun barrel, steady as a heartbeat, and eyes that looked like winter steel. Minjae hadn't expected anyone in his car. He'd left a business dinner early, irritated by politicians who spoke in circles, and returned to the one place in Chicago where he controlled every variable. Except tonight, there was a variable curled in his footwell, bleeding, shaking, and staring at his Glock like it was just another Tuesday. He didn't lower the weapon immediately. Years in his world had taught him that vulnerability was often a setup, that desperation made people dangerous in unpredictable ways. But then she shifted, and the overhead light caught the purple bloom across her cheekbone, the split lip, the defensive wounds on her forearms. His finger eased off the trigger. "Stay down," he said. Not a suggestion, a command. She obeyed without question, and that told him everything. Women who'd been hunted knew how to make themselves small. He holstered the gun, pulled out his phone, and made the call that would change both their lives. "Ronan, bring the secondary vehicle to sub-level 3. Now." He crouched, keeping his movements slow and visible. "Can you stand?" She nodded, but when she tried, her legs buckled. He caught her before she hit the concrete, his hands careful, clinical. She flinched anyway. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said quietly. "But I need to get you out of here before security cycles back through." "Where are you taking me?" Her voice was raw, scraped hollow by screaming or crying. Or both? Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. Minjae almost smiled. Even terrified, she had spine. No, it's not. The black Escalade arrived within 90 seconds. Ronan Kwan, 6'3", Korean-American, Minjae's oldest friend and most lethal employee, took one look at Jade, and his jaw went rigid. He didn't ask questions. He opened the rear door and stepped aside. Minjae guided her into the back seat, then slid in beside her. She pressed herself against the opposite door, watching him like prey watches a predator that hasn't decided whether to strike. "You're not taking me to the police," she said. "Not a question." "No." "Or a hospital." "Not unless you need one." She touched her nose gingerly, testing. "I don't think anything's broken." "That's not the same as being okay." Jade turned to stare out the window as Chicago blurred past downtown lights giving way to the lakefront, then north toward neighborhoods where old money whispered instead of shouted. She realized with creeping dread that she had no idea who this man was, what he wanted, or why he'd looked at her bruises with recognition instead of pity. "What's your name?" she asked. "Kang Minjae." The name meant nothing to her, but the way Ronan's shoulders tensed when Minjae said it told her it should. "And what do you do, mister?" "Kang?" He was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried no apology. "I solve problems that the legal system can't." Her stomach dropped. "You're a criminal." "I'm a businessman who operates outside traditional structures." He met her eyes. "And right now, you need someone who operates outside traditional structures. Because if Evan Castellano is who I think he is, the police won't protect you. A restraining order won't protect you. But I can." "Why would you do that?" "You don't know me." Minjae's expression went distant, haunted by something she couldn't see. "Let's just say I have personal reasons for hating men who put their hands on women." The Escalade pulled into an underground garage, not a public structure this time, but something private, fortified. Armed guards nodded as they passed. Jade's pulse hammered. "This is insane," she whispered. "Yes," Minjae agreed. "But you're still alive. And tomorrow, when Evan realizes you're gone, that will be the only thing that matters." Safety felt unreal, like a dream that could snap with one wrong breath. The penthouse didn't look like a fortress. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Minimalist furniture in shades of gray and charcoal. Art that probably cost more than Jade's yearly salary. But she noticed the cameras, the reinforced door frame, the way every window had ballistic film that caught light differently than ordinary glass. "Guest suite is down the hall," Minjae said, gesturing. "Bathroom stocked. There are clothes in the closet, different sizes. Take what fits." Jade stood in the entryway, arms wrapped around herself. "How long am I staying here?" "As long as it takes." That's not an answer either. "I don't deal in certainties. I deal in probabilities and contingencies." He set his keys on a console table, with the precision of ritual. Probability says Evan will look for you. Contingency says he won't find you here. And if he does? Minjae's eyes went flat. Then he'll wish he hadn't. A door opened, and another man entered, Korean, early 30s, wearing tactical pants and a shoulder holster like other people wore watches. He stopped when he saw Jade, his gaze sweeping over her injuries with a detached assessment of someone who'd seen worse. "Ronan Kwan," Minjae introduced, "head of security. He'll be coordinating your protection detail." "I don't need a detail," Jade protested. "I just need—" "You need more than you realize," Ronan cut in, his voice sharp but not unkind. "And until you understand exactly how men like Evan Castellano operate, you're going to trust that we do." She flinched at Evan's name. Minjae noticed. "Ronan, give us a moment." The security chief nodded and disappeared into another room. Minjae approached Jade slowly, stopping just outside her personal space. "I know this is overwhelming. I know you're scared, but I need you to understand something." He waited until she met his eyes. "In my world, there are rules. And the first rule is, no one touches what's under my protection. Ever. You're safe here. That's not a promise, it's a fact. Jade wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But trust felt like a language she'd forgotten how to speak. She nodded anyway. Because what choice did she have? The nightmares came that first night. Jade jolted awake at 3 a.m., gasping, certain she'd heard Evan's voice in the hallway. She crept to the door, pressed her ear against it, heard nothing but the hum of expensive silence. When she finally opened it, Min Jae was sitting in the living room, awake, reading something on a tablet. He looked up. Can't sleep? She shook her head. Coffee or tea? I don't want to be. It's not a burden, he interrupted gently. It's 3 in the morning, and we're both awake. Coffee or tea? Tea, please. He moved to the kitchen with the economy of someone who lived alone and liked it that way. Jade perched on the edge of the sofa, watching him, trying to reconcile the man who'd held a gun on her with the one now steeping chamomile like it mattered. How often does this happen? She asked. Women hiding in your car? You're the first. Then why? My mother, he said quietly, setting a mug in front of her. She died when I was 14. My father's fists were the reason. Jade's breath caught. I made a promise at her funeral. Min Jae continued, his voice steady, but his eyes somewhere else, that I would never become him, and that I would never stand by while it happened to someone else. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just drink your tea and try to rest. Tomorrow, things start moving. What things? Evidence collection. Witness interviews. Building a case that puts Evan Castellano exactly where he belongs. Jade wrapped her hands around the warm mug. You really think you can do that? Min Jae's smile was cold and certain. I don't think. I execute. Jade had escaped one monster only to realize she may have hidden inside another monster's world. 3 days in the penthouse, and the walls were closing in. Min Jae came and went, like a shadow there at dawn. Gone by midday, back after dark. Ronan rotated security shifts, with military precision. Jade felt like an artifact under glass. Valuable, fragile, on display for no one. On the 4th morning, she made a decision. She found Min Jae in his office, a room she'd been told was off limits, which naturally made it the first place she went. He looked up from a conference call, eyes narrowing when he saw her in the doorway. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, then ended it without waiting for a response. You're not supposed to be in here. I'm not supposed to be a lot of places. Your penthouse, your world, your business. Jade stepped inside, closing the door behind her. But here I am. So let's stop pretending this is temporary charity, and you tell me who you actually are. Min Jae leaned back in his chair, studying her. You want the truth? I'm owed the truth. You're owed safety. Truth is optional. Not for me. He was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to a cabinet, and poured 2 glasses of whiskey, even though it was barely 10 a.m. He handed her one. Kang Min Jae, 34, born in Seoul, raised in Chicago after my mother brought us here running from my father. She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. He found us anyway. He took a drink. She died. I didn't. I grew up angry and smart, which is a dangerous combination in certain neighborhoods. By 20, I was running logistics for a crew on the south side. By 25, I owned the crew. By 30, I'd expanded into import, export, real estate, private security. Legitimate fronts, less legitimate operations. Jade's hand trembled. So you're exactly what I thought. A criminal. I operate in gray spaces the law doesn't reach. I move money. I broker deals. I solve problems for people who can't solve them themselves. His eyes held hers. And yes, sometimes that means I do things that would horrify you. But I have rules. No drugs, no human trafficking, no violence against women or children, ever. And Evan? Evan Castellano is the son of Marcus Castellano. Mid-level player. Thinks he's bigger than he is. Evan himself is a trust fund sociopath with a history of restraining orders, sealed assault charges, and one ex-girlfriend who disappeared 2 years ago. Jade's blood went cold. Disappeared? She withdrew the charges, left the state, and hasn't been heard from since. Could be witness protection. Could be something worse. Min-jae set down his glass. That's why I'm not handing you to the police. Because Evan has connections. And connections mean evidence disappears. Witnesses recant. Cases fall apart. So, what's your plan? Just hide me forever? My plan is to gather enough evidence that when we do move, Evan Castellano doesn't just lose in court. He loses everything. His reputation, his freedom, his future. Jade drained her whiskey, felt it burn. And what do you get out of this? Min-jae's expression shifted something raw and unguarded, flickering across his face before the mask returned. Peace of mind. Knowing I didn't fail someone the way I failed my mother. She should have been afraid. Should have run. But instead, she crossed the room and did the one thing that made no logical sense. She reached out and touched his hand. You were 14. You were a child. Old enough to know, he said quietly. Old enough to act. Old enough to save her. And I didn't. That's not. The office door burst open. Ronan stood there, phone in hand, face grim. He knows. Min-jae went still. How? Security footage from the garage. Someone sold it to him. Evan Castellano just posted your license plate on 6 different forums, asking if anyone knows who drives a Genesis GV80 with that number. Jade's knees nearly buckled. Min-jae caught her elbow, steadied her. How long before he traces it back here? He asked Ronan. Hours. Maybe less if he's paying the right people. Min-jae turned to Jade. I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Do you want to run, or do you want to stand? She thought about every time she'd apologized for existing, every time she'd made herself smaller to avoid Evan's rage, every bruise she'd covered with makeup and lies. I want to stand. Then we don't hide. Min-jae's voice went hard, commanding. We bring the fight to him, and we make damn sure he knows exactly who he's dealing with. The past always thinks it owns you, until you look it in the eyes and refuse to kneel. Evan Castellano arrived at 4 p.m. with the confidence of a man who'd never been told no and meant it. He rolled up to the high-rise in a Mercedes his father had bought him, parked in a tow zone, and walked through the lobby like he owned it. The concierge, a retired Marine named Davidson, who Min-jae paid extremely well to notice everything, intercepted him at the elevator bank. Can I help you, sir? I'm looking for someone. Evan pulled out his phone, showed a picture of Jade from Instagram. Seen her? Davidson's face remained professionally blank. I'm afraid I can't disclose resident information. I'm not asking about residents. I'm asking about a woman who was kidnapped and brought here against her will. The lobby went quiet. Other residents paused. Davidson's hand moved subtly toward the panic button under his desk. Sir, if you believe a crime has been committed, you should contact the police. Evan's smile turned ugly. She's my girlfriend. She had a mental health episode and ran. I just want to make sure she's safe. Upstairs, in the penthouse, Jade watched the security feed on Min-jae's tablet. Her hands were shaking. He's good, she whispered. He sounds so reasonable. That's how predators work, Min-jae said. They're always reasonable in public. Ronan entered, tactical vest on, earpiece active. Building security is evacuating the lobby. Davidson triggered the alert. CPD is en route, but Evan's not leaving. Min-jae looked at Jade. Last chance. I can have you out the service entrance in 60 seconds. She thought about running, about hiding, about spending the rest of her life looking over her shoulder. No. Then we do this my way. When the elevator doors opened on the lobby level, Evan was mid-rant, voice rising, demanding to see whoever the hell owns this building. Security guards flanked him at a careful distance. Residents whispered, phones recorded. Then Kang Min-jae stepped out of the elevator, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. He wore a charcoal suit tailored like armor, moved with the coiled stillness of a blade in its sheath. Evan's eyes locked onto him, and for a split second just a heartbeat fear flickered across his face. You're looking for someone, Min-jae said. Not a question. Evan recovered quickly, puffing up. Yeah, my girlfriend. About 5 to 6, dark hair. I know who you're looking for. She's not your girlfriend. The hell she's not. Jade Miller. We've been together 2 years. And in those 2 years, how many times did you put her in the hospital? The lobby went silent. Evan's jaw clenched. I don't know what she told you, but she didn't have to tell me anything. The bruises spoke for themselves. Min Jae took a single step forward. Evan backed up. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to delete every photo, every contact, every trace of her from your life. And you're never going to come near her again. Evan laughed sharp, ugly. And who the hell are you to tell me that? Someone who makes problems disappear. The threat hung in the air like cordite. Evan looked around at the security cameras, the witnesses, the guards. Then he smiled, and it was worse than his anger. You think you're protecting her? You're just the next guy who thinks she's worth saving. But here's the thing about Jade. She always comes back. Because she knows she's nothing without me. Min Jae's control wavered. His hand moved toward his jacket. Min Jae. Don't. Everyone turned. Jade stood at the elevator bank, Ronan beside her, looking small and terrified and absolutely resolute. Evan's face lit up. Baby, I'm not your baby. I'm not your girlfriend. I'm not your anything. Her voice shook, but she didn't look away. You broke my ribs. You fractured my cheekbone. You told me I was worthless so many times. I started to believe it. That's not you're confused. I'm not confused. I'm done. She took a breath. And I'm pressing charges. Every hospital visit. Every police report. I was too scared to file. Every witness who saw what you did. It's all going on record. Evan's mask slipped. You ungrateful. Choose your next words very carefully. Min Jae interrupted, his voice lethal. Because there are cameras everywhere, and assault charges stacked beautifully on top of existing warrants. Evan went pale. What warrants? Min Jae smiled cold, satisfied. The ones that went active about 15 minutes ago when the Cook County DA's office received a very comprehensive file on your activities. Assault, battery, stalking, witness intimidation, and my personal favorite parole violation from that sealed case 3 years ago. Police sirens wailed outside. Evan looked at the doors, at Min Jae, at Jade. This isn't over, he hissed. Yes, Jade said quietly. It really is. When the police took Evan away in handcuffs, Jade's legs finally gave out. Min Jae caught her before she hit the marble floor, held her while she shook, whispered words she couldn't hear over the roaring in her ears. You did it, he said. You stood. I want him to watch me walk away, she'd told Min Jae earlier. And now Evan was watching from the back of a squad car, rage and disbelief warring on his face. Jade met his eyes one last time. Then she turned away and let Min Jae take her home. Justice isn't a feeling. It's paperwork, bruises turned into proof, and courage that doesn't tremble when it's tired. Dahlia Park looked like she could argue God into a plea deal and make him thank her for the opportunity. Mid-40s, Korean-American, wearing Armani like battle armor, she set her briefcase on Min Jae's dining table with the reverence others reserved for religious texts. Kang, it's been a while. 6 months, Min Jae said. The Park Avenue acquisition, where you overpaid by 30%, and I told you so. She turned to Jade, extending a hand. Dahlia Park, attorney. I specialize in cases that make prosecutors nervous and defense lawyers reconsider their career choices. Jade shook it, feeling outclassed. Jade Miller. I know. I've read your file. All of it. Dahlia's expression softened fractionally. And I'm sorry you had to live through any of that. But now, we're going to make sure Evan Castellano pays for every second of it. Dr. Marin Sato arrived 20 minutes later, a Japanese-American trauma therapist with silver-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering to be shocked by any of it. She set up in Min Jae's office with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done crisis interventions in war zones. Jade, I'm Dr. Sato. You can call me Marin. I'm here to help you process what happened and to document it in ways that hold up in court. I've never done therapy before, Jade admitted. Most people who need it haven't. That's why the first session is just talking. You tell me what you're comfortable sharing, and I listen. No judgment, no pressure. Dahlia opened her briefcase, pulling out files. Before we begin, I need to be very clear about what we're building here. This isn't just a criminal case. We're also pursuing a civil suit for damages, and we're applying for a permanent restraining order. Each piece requires different evidence standards. Jade sat down slowly. What do you need from me? Everything. Every hospital visit. Every time he threatened you. Every witness, neighbors, co-workers, friends who saw bruises or heard arguments. Every text message, email, voicemail. Every police call that didn't result in a report because you were too scared to press charges. I deleted most of the messages. Deleted doesn't mean gone, Ronan said from the doorway. He held up a laptop. Evan's digital footprint is sloppy. Cloud backups, metadata, IP logs. He thought he was careful. He wasn't. Over the next 6 hours, Jade's life unspooled across Min Jae's dining table like evidence at a crime scene. Dr. Sato recorded her testimony. Clinical, detailed, devastating. The first time Evan hit her 8 months in, over a phone call from a male colleague. The first time she thought about leaving after he dislocated her shoulder and told the ER she'd fallen. The night she actually tried, he found her at her sister's, dragged her back, and she never tried again. Dahlia took notes in shorthand. Her expression, unreadable. When Jade described the wine bottle incident the final night, the attorney paused. Did he have a weapon? Just the bottle. And his hands. Did he say anything that indicated premeditation? Like, I'm going to kill you, or this ends tonight? Jade's voice went small. He said, You're not leaving me alive. The room went quiet. That's attempted murder, Dahlia said flatly. Not assault. Murder. But I did leave alive. Intent matters. He stated intent to kill you. That changes the charges, the sentencing, everything. Ronan pulled up security footage from Jade's apartment building, grainy, but clear enough to show her running barefoot into the street at 11 p.m., blood visible even in black and white. Then he pulled up footage from the parking garage. Evan followed you. Didn't catch you, but he followed. That's stalking. Pursuit with intent to harm. It stacks. By midnight, they had a file 3 inches thick, medical records from 4 hospitals, witness statements from 3 neighbors and 2 co-workers, digital forensics showing Evan's GPS stalking app on Jade's phone, photos of bruises in various stages of healing, documented with metadata proving dates and times. This is airtight, Dahlia said with satisfaction. Any halfway competent prosecutor could convict on this. But, Min Jae prompted, but Evan's father has money and connections. He'll hire the best defense team money can buy, and they'll do what defense teams always do, discredit the victim. Jade went cold. How? Dahlia met her eyes without flinching. They'll say you're lying, that you're unstable, that you consented to rough sex and are now having regrets. They'll dig into your sexual history, your mental health, your financials. They'll paint you as a gold digger who targeted Min Jae for money and fabricated abuse to justify leaving Evan. That's insane. It's effective, which is why we're going to counter it before they deploy it. Dahlia pulled out another file. I need you to authorize a full psychiatric evaluation. I need tax records proving you were financially independent. I need character witnesses who can testify you're stable, reliable, and truthful. And she glanced at Min Jae. We need to be very careful about the optics of your relationship with Mr. Kung. We don't have a relationship, Jade said quickly. Not yet, but if one develops, the defense will weaponize it. She left her boyfriend for a richer man and cried abuse to cover her tracks. It's predictable. It's gross. And juries believe it more often than they should. Min Jae's jaw tightened. So what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that until this case is resolved, you maintain professional distance. No dates. No public appearances together. No social media interaction. Jade needs to be sympathetic, independent, and absolutely credible. Jade looked at Min-jae, really looked at him. Saw the way his hands clenched when Dahlia outlined the strategy. Saw the way his eyes tracked her when he thought she wasn't looking. Saw something neither of them had acknowledged yet. "I can do that," she said quietly. Min-jae nodded once. "Whatever it takes." Dr. Sato closed her notebook. "Jade, you've done incredibly difficult work today. How are you feeling?" "Tired and angry." "Good. Anger is fuel. Use it." As everyone packed up to leave, Dahlia paused at the door. "Jade, one more thing. Evan's going to flip the story. He's going to claim you're the abuser, or mentally ill, or that this is all a misunderstanding. When that happens, not if, when, do not engage. Do not defend yourself on social media. Do not talk to reporters. Let me handle it. What if people believe him?" Dahlia's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Let them. Because when we walk into that courtroom with medical records, witness testimony, and forensic evidence, belief becomes irrelevant. Facts win. Men like him don't become cold by choice. They become cold because warmth once got someone killed." Min-jae stood on his balcony at 3 a.m., whiskey in hand, watching Chicago glitter like shattered glass. He didn't drink, often control mattered too much, but tonight the memories were loud. Her name was So-yeon, his mother. He remembered her laugh, bright and rare, usually reserved for moments when his father wasn't home. He remembered the way she'd hide bruises with makeup so precise it looked like art. He remembered the night she told him they were leaving, her hands shaking as she packed their lives into 2 suitcases. "Min-jae, we're going to America. We're going to be safe." They'd lasted 3 years. His father found them on a Tuesday. Min-jae came home from school to find the apartment door ajar. His mother on the kitchen floor. His father standing over her with knuckles that would later be ruled consistent with defensive injuries, even though everyone knew the truth. She died in the ambulance. Min-jae held her hand the whole way, whispering promises he was too young to keep. The trial was a joke. His father's lawyer painted So-yeon as unstable, claimed she'd attacked first, pointed to the restraining order she'd filed as proof of her erratic behavior. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Manslaughter, not murder. 8 years. Eligible for parole in 5. He served 3. Min-jae learned something important in those years between his mother's funeral and his 18th birthday. The law protected money, power, and men who knew how to work the system. It did not protect women like his mother. It did not protect 14-year-old boys who watched their fathers walk free. So he built a different system. The door to the balcony opened. Ronan stepped out, holding a tablet. "Thought you'd want to see this." Min-jae took it. Security footage from the Cook County Jail showed Evan in an orange jumpsuit, pacing his cell like a caged animal. According to the timestamp, he'd been at it for hours. "Bail hearings tomorrow," Ronan said. "Dahlia thinks the judge will set it high." "Not high enough." Min-jae's voice was flat. "Marcus Castellano will post whatever they ask." "Maybe. But the DA's office is pushing for remand. No bail. Too much flight risk. Too much evidence of ongoing danger. Will they get it?" 50-50. Depends on the judge. Min-jae handed back the tablet. "Make sure Dahlia has everything she needs. And double the security on Jade. If Evan makes bail, he'll come for her." "Already done." Ronan hesitated. "You getting attached?" "I'm ensuring an asset's safety." "That's not what I asked." Min-jae drained his whiskey. "She reminds me of my mother. Strong enough to run, smart enough to survive, but worn down by a system that tells women like her they're the problem. And when this is over, when Evan's locked up and Jade doesn't need protection anymore, then she walks away, lives her life, forgets any of this happened." Ronan's expression said he didn't believe that for a second. "You know she's falling for you. She's traumatized and grateful. It's transference. Dr. Sato warned about it. And you? What's your excuse?" Min-jae turned back to the skyline, jaw tight. "I don't have one." Inside, in the guest suite, Jade couldn't sleep either. She lay in the dark, replaying the look on Min-jae's face when Dahlia told them to keep their distance, like someone had taken something fragile and crushed it before it could fully form. She didn't know when it had happened. Maybe when he'd held her after the lobby confrontation. Maybe when he'd sat with her at 3 a.m. making tea. Maybe in the garage, when he'd looked at her bruises and promised safety without asking for anything in return. But somewhere between running for her life and testifying about it, Jade had done the one thing Dr. Sato had warned against. She'd started to care about the man who'd saved her. And that terrified her more than Evan ever had. Because Evan had been a monster. Predictable. Knowable. Min-jae was something else entirely dangerous, not because he hurt people, but because he made her want to trust again. And trust, in Jade's experience, was just another word for eventual betrayal. She heard footsteps in the hallway, paused outside her door, continued on. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her heart hammer. This is stupid. This is dangerous. This is... Her door opened. Min-jae stood there, silhouetted by hallway light. Can't sleep? He asked. The same question from their first sleepless night. The same careful distance. No. Coffee or tea? She should have said tea. Should have kept it safe. Can we just talk? He hesitated, then nodded. They ended up on the balcony, wrapped in separate blankets, watching the city breathe. For a long time, neither spoke. Then, tell me about her, Jade said quietly. Your mother. Min-jae went still. Why? Because you see her when you look at me, and I want to know who she was. So he told her about So-yun's laugh, about the way she'd taught him to cook Korean food in their tiny Chicago apartment, about her job cleaning office buildings at night so he could go to a good school during the day, about the promises she'd made that America would be different, better, safe, about how she'd been wrong. I was in the hospital when they read the verdict, he said. Manslaughter. The lawyer looked at me like I should be grateful it wasn't acquittal. Like 8 years was justice. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't change anything. He turned to her. That's why I do what I do. Because sorry is just a word people say when they can't fix the damage. And you fix the damage? I try. Jade pulled her blanket tighter. What happens if you can't? With Evan, I mean. What if he walks? He won't. But if he does, then I make sure he regrets it. Min-jae's voice went cold. Final. There are consequences the law can't impose, and I'm very good at imposing them. She should have been horrified, should have recognized the threat for what it was. Instead, she felt safe. Dahlia said, we have to keep our distance, Jade said after a moment. She's right. And if I don't want to? Min-jae met her eyes. Then you'll have to wait, because I won't be the reason Evan Castellano walks free. It wasn't a rejection. It was a promise deferred. Jade could live with that. The same garage that hid her now becomes a battleground, because the underworld doesn't forgive softness. The call came at 1 p.m. Min-jae answered on the first ring. We have a problem, Ronan said, his voice tight. Where? Sublevel 3. Same garage where you found her. Min-jae was moving before Ronan finished the sentence. He grabbed his Glock from the safe, checked the magazine, and headed for the door. Jade appeared in the hallway, wearing one of his shirts, eyes wide. What's wrong? Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or Ronan. Min-jae. Not now. He was out the door before she could argue. The garage was a war zone. 2 black SUVs blocked the exit ramp. 4 men in tactical gear surrounded Ronan, who was bleeding from a head wound but still on his feet, gun drawn. A 5th man lay motionless near the elevator. Min-jae assessed the scene in 2 seconds. Ambush. Professional. Designed to send a message. Kang Min-jae, one of the men called. Eastern European accent. Probably Ukrainian. We have business. Then make an appointment. Min-jae's gun stayed trained on the speaker's center mass. This is my building. You don't get to just walk in. Your building, your woman, your problem. The man smiled. Viktor Kozlov sends his regards. Min-jae's blood went cold. Kozlov arms dealer, human trafficker. One of the few people in Chicago's underworld Min-jae refused to work with on principle. I don't do business with Kozlov. But you do business with people who owe Kozlov money. Like Marcus Castellano. The man gestured to his crew. Marcus can't pay. But you're protecting his son's ex-girlfriend. Kozlov finds that interesting. He wonders if maybe you'd be willing to settle Marcus's debt. Tell Kozlov to collect from Marcus directly. Marcus is broke. His assets are frozen. His lawyers are expensive. The smile widened. But you have resources. And Kozlov thinks a woman like Jade Miller might be worth, say, $2 million to a man like you. Ronan swore under his breath. Min-jae's finger tightened on the trigger. You're not leaving here with her. We're not asking. The Ukrainian nodded, and two of his men moved toward the elevator. Min-jae fired. The first round caught the lead man in the shoulder. The second shattered the kneecap of the man next to him. Ronan dropped another one before return fire forced them both into cover behind a concrete pillar. This is insane, Ronan shouted over the gunfire. Kozlov's never moved on you before. Desperation makes people stupid. Min-jae reloaded, popped up, fired twice more. And Marcus Castellano just made me Kozlov's problem. The firefight lasted 90 seconds. When it was over, 3 of Kozlov's men were down. One was fleeing toward the SUVs, and the Ukrainian was bleeding from a gut shot but still conscious. Min-jae stood over him, gun aimed at his head. Tell Kozlov that Jade Miller is off limits. Tell him that anyone who comes near her ends up like you. And tell him that if Marcus Castellano owes him money, he can take it up with Marcus. I'm not a bank. You made a mistake. The Ukrainian gasped. Kozlov doesn't forget. Neither do I. Sirens wailed in the distance. Min-jae looked at Ronan. Clean this up. I'm going back to Jade. Boss, your hand. Min-jae glanced down. Blood dripped from his left hand, where a ricochet had grazed him. He hadn't even felt it. I'm fine. Just handle this. When Min-jae walked back into the penthouse, Jade was standing in the living room with a kitchen knife, shaking but defiant. She dropped it when she saw him. Oh my God, you're bleeding. It's nothing. He moved past her, toward the bathroom. She followed. That's not nothing. That's let me see. Jade, sit down. Her voice cracked. Please. He sat. She grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink, knelt in front of him, and started cleaning the wound with hands that trembled so badly she could barely hold the gauze. What happened down there? Complications. Don't give me that corporate bullshit. What happened? Min-jae sighed. Victor Kozlov, a man I don't work with, sent people to collect on Marcus Castellano's debt. They thought I'd pay it because I'm protecting you. Jade went pale. This is because of me. This is because Marcus Castellano is a degenerate gambler who borrowed from the wrong people. But they came here, and they left bleeding. It's handled. Min-jae, you can't just, she gestured helplessly, shoot people and call it handled. In my world, I absolutely can. He caught her wrist gently. Jade, look at me. This isn't your fault. This is the cost of doing business with people like Kozlov. I knew the risk when I decided to protect you. But what if next time? There won't be a next time. Because tomorrow, Ronan is going to make it very clear to Victor Kozlov that I am the wrong person to threaten. His thumb brushed over her pulse point. You're safe here. That hasn't changed. She looked at him, really looked at him, saw the blood on his shirt, the cold calculation in his eyes, the absolute certainty that he would do it all again without hesitation. And she kissed him. It wasn't soft or tentative. It was desperate and grateful and terrified, two people who'd survived things they shouldn't have, reaching for each other because holding on was easier than letting go. Min-jae pulled back first. We can't. I know, Dahlia said. I don't care what Dahlia said. Jade's voice shook. You almost died tonight because of me. You shot people because of me. The least you can do is let me care about you. Caring about me is dangerous. Being alive is dangerous. She cupped his face with both hands. And I'm so tired of being afraid of living. Min-jae closed his eyes, breathed, made a decision that would either save them both or destroy everything. After the trial, he said quietly, after Evan's locked up and you're safe, and you've had time to figure out who you are without someone controlling you. If you still feel this way, then we'll talk. That could be months. I've waited 14 years to keep a promise to my mother. I can wait a few more months to do this right. Jade's eyes stung. She nodded, stepped back, wrapped her arms around herself. I should go to bed. Jade. Good night, Min-jae. She walked away before he could see her cry. Jade walked into court like a woman who had been buried alive and decided she was done suffocating. The Cook County Courthouse was granite and glass, justice carved into stone that felt too heavy to hold. Jade wore a navy suit Dahlia had picked out, professional, conservative, designed to make her look credible instead of victimized. Her hands shook as she walked through security, but she didn't stop. Min-jae wasn't allowed in the courtroom. Too much risk of the defense using his presence against her. But she knew he was somewhere in the building, watching security feeds, waiting. The courtroom was packed. Evan sat at the defense table in a suit that made him look like a banker instead of a predator. His father, Marcus, sat in the gallery, glaring at everyone. The jury, 7 women, 5 men, looked at Jade with expressions ranging from sympathy to skepticism. Dahlia squeezed her shoulder. Remember, tell the truth. Don't embellish. Don't minimize. Just facts. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Amanda Chen, led Jade through her testimony with surgical precision. Every date, every injury, every threat, the wine bottle, the chase, the moment she realized she had to run or die. And when you hid in Mr. Kang's vehicle, what were you thinking? Chen asked. That if Evan found me, I wouldn't survive the night. The defense attorney, a silver-haired man named Richard Brennan, approached cross-examination like a scalpel wrapped in velvet. Miss Miller, you claim you were afraid for your life, yet you didn't call the police. I did. Twice. Both times, Evan convinced the responding officers it was a misunderstanding. But you didn't press charges. He told me he'd kill me if I did. I believed him. Convenient. And yet, you expect this jury to believe you now? Dahlia stood. Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. Brennan smiled. Miss Miller, isn't it true that you began a relationship with Kang Min-jae within days of leaving Mr. Castellano? No. Mr. Kang provided protection, nothing more. Protection in his penthouse, wearing his clothes, drinking his expensive whiskey. Brennan's voice dripped condescension. That sounds like more than protection to me. Objection! Dahlia's voice cut through the courtroom. Counsel is testifying, not questioning. Sustained. Mr. Brennan, ask questions or sit down. Brennan leaned on the jury box. Miss Miller, how much is Kang Min-jae paying for your testimony? Jade's vision blurred red. He's not. Did he promise you money? A new life? Protection from the consequences of lying under oath? I'm not lying. Then explain to this jury why a man with Mr. Kang's reputation would involve himself in a domestic dispute unless there was something in it for him. The courtroom erupted. The judge's gavel cracked like gunfire. Jade sat frozen, drowning in implication and accusation. Then Amanda Chen stood, tablet in hand. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to enter new evidence. Exhibit 47. Security footage from the parking garage where Miss Miller first encountered Mr. Kang. The screens lit up. Jade, broken and bleeding, crawling into the Genesis. Min-jae returning, gun drawn, then lowering it when he saw her injuries. The careful way he helped her stand. The look on his face, not desire, not calculation, but recognition. This is the moment Mr. Kang decided to help Miss Miller, Chen said quietly. Not because he wanted something from her, but because he saw a woman who reminded him of someone he'd lost. Brennan objected. The judge overruled. The jury watched in silence. When Jade stepped down from the witness stand 2 hours later, she'd told her truth, whether the jury believed it was out of her hands. The verdict came 3 days later. Guilty on all counts. Assault, battery, stalking, attempted murder. Evan Castellano would serve 25 years minimum. Jade heard the words and felt nothing. No relief, no joy, just exhaustion so deep it felt like drowning on dry land. Dahlia hugged her. You did it. We did it. No, you stood up there and faced him. That was all you. In the hallway outside, Minjae waited. He'd watched the verdict from a private feed, Ronan said. He'd smiled, actually smiled when the foreman said, guilty. Jade walked toward him, and for the first time since the garage, he closed the distance, pulled her into his arms, held her while she finally broke. It's over, he whispered. Is it? Evan's locked up. Kozlov's been handled. You're safe. And us? Minjae pulled back just enough to look at her. You have an apartment waiting. A job offer from one of my legitimate companies. A bank account Dahlia set up with compensation from the civil suit. Everything you need to start over. That's not what I asked. I know. His hand cupped her cheek. But you need time to figure out who you are without someone controlling you. And I need to know you're choosing this. Choosing me because you want to. Not because you're grateful or scared or trauma-bonded. Jade's throat burned. What if I already know? Then you'll still know in 6 months. And if you change your mind, Minjae's smile was small, sad, certain. I won't. 6 months later, Jade stood in sub-level 3 of the parking garage where her life had changed. The Genesis was still there, sleek and black and impossibly familiar. She'd spent the months building herself back. Therapy with Dr. Sato. A job in project management at one of Minjae's legitimate real estate firms. An apartment with her name on the lease. Friends who didn't know Evan had ever existed. She was whole again. Not healed, healing was ongoing, but whole. The elevator dinged. Minjae stepped out, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. You came, he said. You asked me to. I gave you an address and a time. I didn't ask for anything. Jade walked toward him slowly. You saved my life. You saved your own life. I just gave you the space to do it. And now you tell me what you want. She stopped in front of him, close enough to touch. I want to try us. I want to see what happens when two broken people decide they're worth fixing. I'm not broken, Minjae said quietly. I'm just careful. Then be careful with me, and let me be careful with you. He studied her face, looking for doubt, for fear, for the girl who'd hidden in his car. He found a woman instead. Okay, he said. Okay? Okay. Jade kissed him in the same garage where he'd found her bleeding and terrified. But this time, she wasn't hiding. She was choosing. And somewhere above them, the city glittered with possibility.